what we're going to go over in our video today is some basic care of our bass bow, how to tighten it to make sure it's good for when we are playing, how to put our rosin on correctly and when to put our rosin on, and then how to loosen it so that way it is safe for our care. Let's start though with a quick review of our bow parts. So we have the tip of our bow here, we have the stick, we have our bow hair, we have our frog, we have our little dot, and we have our screw. So the most important thing we're going to be focusing on for right now is the screw. So our left hand is going to be holding onto the stick of our bow. Our right hand is going to go on the screw. To tighten our bow, to make sure it works well when we're playing, we're going to turn the screw away from us. As we can see, those hairs that looked loose before are now nice and tight. And what may be a little harder to see is that the stick is actually straightening out. So, how do I know when my bow is tight enough? Well, we're going to look for a space at the very thinnest point between our stick and our bow hair. We are going to want to make sure that it is a space just about big enough for our index finger. And that may change depending on how aggressive you play, but for right now it's a good starting spot. So, we have our bow nice and tightened correctly. What we can also see though, it may be a little harder, there we go, is that it still has a curve towards the bow hair. If the stick of our bow was straight, or if it was curved out, it would be too tight. And the problem with tightening it too much is that it can either break the stick or damage the stick, or it can break the bow hair or stretch the bow hair out too much. If our bow hair gets stretched out too much, then we need to replace it with new bow hair, and that costs a little bit of money. So we don't want to have to worry about doing that. So now that we have our bow ready, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about our rosin real quick. So for right now, I have this Pops base rosin, and this is a nice light rosin. We can see here it's lighter in color. And what we'll also notice about most all of our base rosins is that they are a little bit soft. Especially if they heat up, they get really soft. And in fact, they get so soft that they can melt. So what you want to make sure you do for all of your base rosin is when you're done rosining your bow, you put it back in its case. It can't melt out of its case unless you put it in something really hot. Don't do that. So, with our rosin, we have it opened up ready to go. And with our Pops rosin, you can actually see that I tore away some of this paper here to expose a corner of our rosin. We don't need a lot of rosin to be exposed. We just need enough for our bow hair to fit. And you can't really see that there. Let's try this. So just enough for our bow hair to fit like that. So what we're gonna do is while I'm rosining, I'm actually going to practice my bow grip. So I'm going to hold it like this here, and now as I rosin, I'm starting at the frog, and we're going to go to the tip. But we are only going to go in down bows. So we're going to go down, reset, down, reset, and then maybe one more time after this, and then down. So what I noticed here, maybe a little harder since you all are in the video end, is that it got harder and harder for me to pull the bow hair down. If we look at my rosin now, we can see there's a nice little dent that has been made there. And that means I got a pretty decent amount of rosin on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back in its case and make sure it is sealed up nice and tight. So now I don't have to worry about my rosin falling and melting somewhere. So, now that we've rosined our bow nice and good, the other thing for us to talk about is how do we know when to rosin our bow? Well, if our bow is brand new, there's a pretty good chance it's going to need rosin. But if we've been practicing before with that bow, what we'll want to see is when we put our bow on the string, how is it going to sound when we're making noise, making music, hopefully. It should have a nice big sound, especially when we play on our low E string. We should get this really big sound, and that E string should move around a whole bunch. But if that's not the case, we may need to put some rosin on. We may hear a really kind of soft, whimpery sound. And in that case, we want to make sure that we get enough rosin on there to grab nice and strong. So, once we've practiced and we're ready to pack everything up, what are we going to want to do with our bow? We could leave it tightened to make it easier for us for the next time we practice. But the problem with that is it's going to stretch out our bow hair, which means we're going to have to get it changed out sooner. So we don't want to leave it tightened. We actually want to be nice to our bow, and we're going to loosen it. So with our bow in our left hand, we are going to hold the screw with our right hand. We are going to turn the screw towards us. And what we'll see here is that is actually going to bring the stick in the hair much closer again. So what we're going to want to do is loosen it till right about here. We can see there's a few hairs that are starting to space out a little bit, but everything is pretty much still right where it needs to be. If we were to keep going and turning our screw, we're going to run into a problem. So if I keep turning my screw, what we're actually going to see is that the screw is going to come all the way out. So this is a problem because now we can lose our screw. If we lose the screw, you can't use your bow because the screw holds the hair in the bow. If our hair falls down like this, it can cause damage to the tip of our bow because it bends and brings it down, or it can get twisted, and then when we try to play, it's going to cause a lot of problems for us. See, I've already lost one hair by doing that. So, we do not want to over loosen our bow, just like we don't want to over tighten it. Too much of something is a bad thing. So, we've loosened it to the right space, and then we're good to go. So remember, do tighten your bow. Don't over tighten it. No frowny face, no flat smile. Do put rosin on. Don't put too much rosin on. If there's a whole bunch of rosin falling off your bow while you're playing, it might be too much. Do loosen your bow when you're done. Don't let the hairs get all frilly and the screw come out. Do have fun while you practice.